Hello and welcome to Spidey-Stash number 3. My name is Bruce Wechtenheiser and I've been collecting Spider-Man memorabilia and comic books for over 50 years. Back in December of 2020, Brad Douglas, the person who operates and is in charge of the Spider-Man crawl space, contacted me and did a live video interview with me featuring my memorabilia and my stories. And we had such a good time with that I told Brad I'd be willing to help out with the crawl space in the future. So I'm now doing articles and videos about various memorabilia of our favorite character, Spider-Man. Today, episode 3, is all about various model kits that were produced over the years. So let's head over to my PowerPoint and see what we have. The first model kit ever produced was in 1966, a very early item for Spider-Man, and it was made by the Aurora Model Kit Company. It came in a beautiful long rectangular box, and you can see that he was featured posed on a stairwell there on the railing of a banister there, and he was shooting a web down over a defeated Kraven the Hunter. And these model kits, there were 3 of them that came out, Spider-Man, Hulk, and Captain America in 1966. A whopping 98 cents each, and this was the back cover of a comic book. They were heavily publicized in the comics, of course. And you can see, too, that they expected to have a Fantastic Four, or it said more of the Fantastic Four. I don't know if it meant the Fantastic Four or a 4th model kit of some type, but these were the only 3 that were ever produced. And if you're lucky enough to find an original store poster like this one, advertising poster, you'll have quite a treasure on your hands there. The artwork for the box was done by Neil Adams. He didn't sign the box or anything like that, but it's well known that he did the artwork for this box. And you can see the instruction sheet is here on the screen. It was folded up, and this is the unfolded version, and just the back side, if you want to call it that. And then you can see the inside had the actual instructions of how to build the kit. Now this kit, it was kind of interesting because Kraven the Hunter actually came with a small gun, and in the instruction booklet it's called an atomic pistol. So I'm not sure why Kraven was using a gun back then, but they added that one in. And also there was a nameplate. It said Spider-Man in a little rectangle, no hyphen, and that was kind of unique at the time to have a nameplate on your model kits. My brother, my second oldest brother, he's 8 years older than me. Back in 1966, 67, I was only 2 or 3 years old, and he was already 10 or 11, and he loved building model kits, and he took me to our local hobby shop because he saw the Spider-Man on display, a built kit on display, and when we got there, unfortunately, the Spider-Man kits were sold out. So it took me probably close to another 30 years before I actually got my hands on one of the original 1966 Auroras. And never built it. It's still in pieces, and you can see the pieces were actually printed in plastic that was a tan color. So if you're looking for the original printing, make sure that you have the tan colored pieces before they were painted. And as you can notice too, on the back spider, I just noticed this for myself when I started taking photos the other day for this presentation. It's definitely a Ditko style spider, as was the chest spider. If you take a close look there, that was an early version Ditko spider symbol on the front and on the back. So 1966, it makes sense that they're kind of, basing it upon Steve Ditko's work. What you see on the screen now is 8 years later, 1974, Aurora came out with a series of kits, including the Spider-Man, and they redid the 1966 model. Now this time they left out the gun. There's no gun for Kraven, and there's no nameplate for Spider-Man. So those are 2 things that were different. Also with this kit, you had a wonderful 8-page comic book that was done by the wonderful John Romita. And the comic book had the story of the battle with Kraven. And then it also had the instructions. As you can see, the instructions of how to put these pieces together. And it was cast in red plastic. So if you find the red plastic, you probably have the 1974, and they called these the comic scenes. That was the name of the line, comic scenes by Aurora. And you can see the instructions of how to put the things together. And you had the option of using the plastic web backdrop
behind Spider-Man, or a page from this comic book instruction sheet as a 3D type background for your model. You could cut off that last sheet there, the last page with the gorilla that's all webbed up, and you could put that behind the model kit if you really wanted to. And here's the front cover of that comic book instruction sheet. And even this comic book is quite collectible. People are trying to just get the comic, and even some people are getting it graded by CGC and things like that. But that was the 1974. As you can see, it still featured the Steve Ditko style spider in the front and the Steve Ditko spider on the back. And that was the side of the comic scene box, just to show you a little bit more of the box there. And here was one of my better attempts. I was not very good at building model kits. My brother was an expert and I was not an expert. And I probably bought 3 or 4 of these as a kid. You know, when I was in grade school, I had 3 or 4 given to me. And I got a little bit better over the years. You can see I got a little bit better with the print, even the animal print on Craven's pants there. But I never attempted the webs on Spider-Man's costume. As you can see, I never thought I would be good enough at doing those thin web lines. And you can see my expert tape, clear Scotch tape job whenever the web broke at one point, and I repaired it. What an expert repair. Okay, let's move ahead about 3 and 4 years. The incredible, amazing Spider-Van came out. I don't know why Spider-Man needed a van, but he had 2 versions of it. In 1977, that's one on the left. 1978, the one on the right. The company was known as MPC, the MPC model company. And these 2 kits were snapped together. You didn't need to glue them. You didn't need to paint them. They were made for model builders like myself who didn't have as much skill as other people. And as you can see, the first version, the artwork on the side of the van is a little bit strange, to say the least. And the 1978 version has some beautiful John Romita artwork on it, and even the box has John Romita artwork on it. Here's the sides of the boxes, just to compare what you had in the 2 different years. It was the same exact kit except for the decals. And you can see in this picture on the left, someone built the one that I own. It was already pre-built, missing the back 2 tires, but you can see the decal was applied already. The one on the right was completely unbuilt, and you can see that the decals weren't even put on. Nothing was put on. The box was open in my collection, but nothing was ever completed with that model kit. You can see some of the pieces are still attached to what they call the trees, or the sprues, if you want to call them that, in that model kit that I have in my collection, the second Spider-Man van. Also in 1978, MPC released a Figural Spider-Man model, as you can see in the picture here. Not only did it snap together again, you didn't need the glue, and if you didn't want to, you probably didn't have to paint it too much. It also could cling to the wall. It came with sticky back pads that you could stick it to your wall and move it around. And also the eyes would glow in the dark. And you can see some pictures on the side of the box of how to set it up on your wall, or you could put it on the display stand, which was included in the kit. Mine was sealed in my collection here, but I took some pictures of the box there so you can take a look at it. And this side of the box, supposedly the model was shown actual size, and the eyes glow in the dark. Okay, the next kit that came out, we had to wait another 10 years until Horizon started producing some model kits, and they started showing up in the specialty comic book shops. The Amazing Spider-Man, of course, was in the first run of model kits made by Horizon. A few years later, 1992, Venom came out with a kit of his own when he got popular. Carnage came out a year later, 1993. I wouldn't want to try to paint that one. I'm not that skilled. And in 94, this beautiful Green Goblin model kit came out. Again, I would love to have that built and painted by a professional at some point, but that's a beautiful kit. 94 also, that year, Spider-Man 2099. Not many items with him on it, but he had his own model kit back then. And a second Spider-Man model kit came out in 1994 as well. He's kind of crouched and doing a more spider-like pose in that one. And that was it for Horizon. A couple years later, Toy Biz, who was making a lot of the figures and so forth for the Marvel characters, right around the time of the Spider-Man cartoon of the 90s, as you can see the beautiful logo down there. This was a snap-together kit as well. It was a Model 1. And about a year or two later, 1998, they made a Rhino kit, which was kind of cool because there are not many things that are dedicated just to the Rhino. Some action figures, but that was another snap-together. And again in 98, I apologize for the glare on this photo, but there was a glue-together kit for those experts out there. Spider-Man clinging to a wall with his camera set up in a web and so forth. So that was kind of cool. Well, as you know, they always say, when you have something good, you might as well do it again. So Polar Lights started doing reproductions of the 1966 model kit. This one came out in 2003, and it was made a little bit larger, a larger scale. You can see the comparison of the boxes, but when you built the model kit, it was a little bit larger, and it came molded in white. So if you're paying attention to all these colors, you'll know which version you have if someone gives you a model kit, and you can check out the colors of the pieces. Also, quickly after that, not quickly actually, it was another 6 years, the Mobius model company came out with a nice Spider-Man and a Green Goblin that could go together to kind of form a scene. And you could buy them as a 2-pack, or you could buy them separately. There's the Goblin, there's the Spider-Man. In 2011, Polar Lights thought, well, if we can reproduce the 1966, why don't we reproduce the 1974 comic scene? And that's what they did. And it was kind of strange, though. Again, it was probably a little bit larger scale. You can see Polar Lights on the left, the 1974 version on the right. And on the comic scenes from Polar Lights, they had an actual photo of a built model kit on the side, which is kind of cool. What I found interesting was this was kind of a mashup between the 1966 and 1974. As you can see, they included the gun, which the 1974 comic scene didn't have, and the nameplate for Spider-Man. Those two were in the 1966 kit, and also the comic book. So it's kind of a mashup of both kits together, and as you can see, it was molded in red. So you got to kind of be careful with that one to see which one you have. Again, in 2012, MPC came out again with its Klingon Model Kit, a reproduction of the old days. When they have something good, they just want to do it up a couple different times. And this was the back of the box of the MPC repro that came out. And you can see maybe it's a little bit more detailed than it was back in 1978. And that last scene, let me go back to that for a second. This was done by the Round 2 company. Round 2, they did the repros of the MPCs. So just to let you know the name of the company there. And finally, this beautiful Volkswagen Beetle. Again, I apologize for the glare at the top of the screen. This was made by Polar Lights, and it was a snap-it-together model kit. Another wonderful model kit that Spider-Man can drive around in a Beetle all day long. Not quite as cool as a Batmobile, we'll take it. And not quite as cool as a Spidey-Mobile either. Anyway, that's the end of the model kits for this episode, so I hope you had a good time watching Spidey-Stash number 3. If you ever want to get in contact with me, you can look me up on Facebook, Bruce Wechtenheiser. On Instagram, I'm Spidey Collector. And before we leave today, I just wanted to say one more time that, kind of like a plug, that this summer in my hometown of Johnstown, Pennsylvania, the hometown of Steve Ditko, we're doing an exhibit, a 2-month-long exhibit starting in mid-July. So if you go to bottleworks.org, you can check out more information about that. Brad also has an interview up with Steve Ditko's nephew, Mark Ditko, and you can check it out, and they talk about Steve and about the event. But until next time, take care and God bless.